Well, good morning, everybody. How are you doing today? All right, excellent, excellent. Welcome to the second annual nginx user conference. We had our first one, obviously, just last year. Can I get a show of hands of who was actually at the event last year? Wow, okay. Great to see some of the attendees from last year coming back and some new attendees this year. We have an amazing 2 days of agenda planned for you. Amazing speakers, great content. And we've also flown in many of the nginx staff from around the world. So please come and meet us at the nginx booth. We also have many of our engineering staff that build the software every day. So please connect with us and come to the booth. My name, as you see in the slide, is Gus Robertson. I'm the CEO of nginx, and I've been in open source now for well over a decade. I've been with nginx for around 3 years. And I've seen some amazing milestones in those 3 years that I wanted to share with you this morning. Back in 2013, we became the #1 web server for the 1,000 busiest websites in the world, which was an amazing milestone in our history. Then in 2014, we became the #1 web server for the 10,000 busiest websites in the world. Here we are today in 2015, and it's with great pride that I can share with you that last week we became the #1 web server for the top 100,000 busiest websites in the world. And that's a testament to everybody in this room that uses the technology on a daily basis. It's not just the busiest websites in the world that use nginx. We are now up to 140 million websites globally, so massive broad adoption across the industry. And many of the most innovative companies in the world, many that are represented here in this room, are using nginx to run their businesses and run their critical applications. One of the great things of being an nginx, given the brand that we have, given the adoption that I've just shown you, and given the problem that we solve with application delivery, it really gives us a front row seat into what's happening in the industry. Back in 2011, Mark Andreessen called out that software was eating the world. And this is absolutely true. What we've been seeing is that intelligence, controls, configurations, things that were usually in the past put into proprietary hardware have now moved out and have become into software. It doesn't make sense to put application controls in a hardware device at the front of a data center. It makes sense to put them natively within the application. And that's absolutely true. So software is eating the world. But for me, it's more than that. If you look at every industry buzzword you can imagine, right? Whether it's microservices, whether it's containers, whether it's continuous integration and delivery, if it's the movement from heavyweight middleware SOA architectures to lightweight API RESTful architectures, if it's moving to a DevOps culture, I'm sure you read about this every day as I do in the press, it's all leading down a single path. It's all leading to the application. And it's not just that we're seeing a move to applications, we're seeing that having far more reaching implications, particularly in the enterprise. We're seeing that those that build and manage applications, that there's more control being given to those than in the past, more budget being given to those. There's a lot more emphasis on the importance of those that build and manage applications and the applications themselves. And why is that? Well, it's very clear to me that it's all because of the user, right? It's about the user and the user experience, because that's where we gain our customers. That's where we drive our revenue, right? Who cares if the application's running on the cloud or in your own data center, as long as the user is getting the experience, the performance they expect, the reliability, the security of knowing that their user information, their credit card details aren't being exposed. It's all about the user experience. And that's what's driving massive innovation in our industry today. You know, to me, it's amazing to see the speed of innovation. This is something we've never seen before in the world. And we're building some of the coolest stuff. The coolest stuff I could only ever imagine as a kid. Now I'm going to show my age a little bit here, but when I left high school and I was at college, this is not a picture of me, by the way. But I did work on mainframes, and my job was to load tape drives on the mainframes back then. And just to think that here I am standing on stage with the power of a mainframe on my wrist, right? You know, I still go back to those days at IBM, and they would show me the massive football field of mainframes, you know. It's just, and the power is here on my wrist is just amazing. And so we here together are united on this journey of building the coolest stuff. But there's something more that unites us, I think, which is some fundamental drivers and characteristics of us as people, as individuals, that is driving us to want to do this. We have, I think, a fundamental desire to make extraordinary things. You know, from that very first time that any one of us in this room programmed a computer to show hello world, it was about the act of creation, of building something. And I think that's something that we all share and unite around. And last night I had the great pleasure of talking to Dragos from Adobe, who's got a keynote tomorrow morning at 9:30 here on the stage, so please come and see Dragos present. And you can see the passion in his eyes as he's talking about his project and how keen he is to share that with everybody here. And that's the passion that drives a desire to build extraordinary things. But it's not just about building extraordinary things, it's also solving the tough problems. Because when you put those two things together, the desire to create something unique and interesting and extraordinary, and combine that with solving a tough problem, that we really get to change the world, and change the world for the better. And that might sound to you altruistic, right? But it's not. I mean, for me, it's real. And let me explain why it's real. You know, how many of you took Uber here this morning? I know I did, right? I know that yesterday my Uber application stopped working on my phone when I upgraded to 9OS, so I was lost yesterday without my Uber application, right? We have an expectation now that technology is providing us the capability to have a car drive up to my door within 3 minutes of asking for it, and me know if it's arriving. How many of you have been to a city where Uber is not working and you have to actually order a taxi and wait 5, 15, 30 minutes and you don't know if it's coming, right? Our expectations have changed because of technology. We expect things to be better now. You know, think of working parents who use Instacart, so when they come home, they have fresh groceries so they can make a meal rather than having to spend 2 hours at a grocery store on their way home, right? That improves our lives. The slide I have on the screen now is a very personal experience that I have. I arrived in San Francisco about 4 weeks ago, and the day after I arrived, our 14-month-old baby got a fever of 104, and we didn't know what was wrong. And we looked for a pediatrician, we looked for an appointment, and we couldn't get anything in the city. Someone recommended this app called Heal. We logged into the app, and within 60 minutes, we had a registered pediatrician in our apartment checking on our baby and telling us that it was just an ear infection, she needed some antibiotics, but she was going to be okay. That peace of mind that this application brought me and my wife about our kid, right? You can't measure the value of that. Imagine if you were in a foreign city with your child and your child was sick and you knew that you had an application like this and that within 60 minutes you could have someone, a trained medical person in your apartment letting you know everything was going to be okay. This is absolutely about changing our lives for the better, and every single one of you that's working on these applications is a part of this journey that we're all on together. And we're innovating. And so how does this innovation start? Well, typically it starts with a single idea. Maybe you have an idea for an application for yourself, maybe an application for a startup, maybe an application for you at work, right? And it's a great application, you build some cool features and people start using the application. Maybe the features start growing and it becomes a little bit beyond features you can just build yourself, so you bring in other team members. And then you need to break the application into different components because each team member wants to work on a different component, so you break it into services or microservices. And then you need to think about, well, how am I going to interconnect these services via API calls? Then your application starts to scale, starts to grow, and you think, maybe I need to move it to the cloud. So how do I scale my application on the cloud? You think about, how do I deliver this application to mobile devices? How do I secure my application? You find very quickly that applications have a habit of getting complex very quickly, right? And this is when you find that building an application is really only half the battle. And this is where we at nginx think we can help. We really focus on a single objective, which is on flawless application delivery. And this is the same mission that we've been on since the very first day that Igor sat down and wrote the very first line of code for nginx, when he was trying to solve exactly the same problem at the company he was working at because he couldn't achieve flawless application delivery. We want to take the complexity out of delivering applications so that you can focus on building the cool stuff, and we can worry about building the tools to help you deliver those applications. Whether that application is a small application for yourself or a startup, or is a complex microservice-based architecture that's built with hundreds of developers and delivered to millions of users. And we want to do this with the most elegant and high-performance software we can possibly deliver. And I want to be clear on this because it's an exciting thing for me to see when I sit with our engineering team that they want to spend weeks painstakingly trying to get a feature down from 100 lines of code down to 10 lines of code. Right? That's just who we are. That's our ethos. That's our culture. We want to make application delivery possible with the highest performing software and do that for as many applications as we can. So that when you bring that application to life, when you decide to go hello world with your production application, that hello world can be fearlessly mean hello world in today's scale that we're talking about, so that you can have that confidence of security, reliability, and performance. Our goal is to make sure that the amazing things you do when you're building your application stay amazing. And so what does that mean more specifically today? I'm going to ask Owen Garrett to join me on stage to take you through where our product roadmap is today and where we're taking it in the future. Before he walks on stage, though, I do have to mention that right now is the Rugby World Cup. I don't know how many of you know that. And right now, at this very second, Australia, you may notice from my accent I'm Australian, is playing Fiji. And so I don't know if anyone has an update for me. Are there any Fijians in the audience? No? Owen is British, but he supports the Ireland team. And so right now we're still friends. But when they come up through the pool, we may not stay that way. So please join me in welcoming Owen on stage.